Several new U.S. military bases are on higher alert now as the potential threat for attack is now imminent. I'll give you the details here on that. And you won't believe how much U.S. military personnel and boots are already on the ground at risk. I'll give you the number here. It's shocking, and most people do not know this. How many US military personnel are already overseas? Yeah. And the US Supreme Court issues a new ruling on Trump here today, which has a lot of people surprised. All this and more in this video. Let's jump right in. Thank you so much for smashing the like button. It really helps out our channel. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos, which is completely free. Here we go. Several U.S. military bases in Europe are on heightened alert amid possible terrorist threats. This also comes here as the Olympics will be starting later this month in Paris in July. So take that into consideration. Several U.S. military bases across Europe are on a heightened state of alert over the weekend, with the level of force protection raised to its second highest state of alert. Yeah, so you can see here for global military info, U.S. military bases in Bulgaria, Italy, Romania, and Germany were placed at heightened state of alert, also known as Force Protection Condition Charlie. This is the highest threat level in at least 10 years. FP-Con Charlie applies when an incident occurs or intelligence is received indicating some form of terrorist action or targeting against personnel or facilities is likely. 100% ID card check is required. The only level higher than this is FP-Con Delta, which applies in the immediate area where a terrorist attack has occurred, or when intelligence has been received that terrorist action against a specific location or person is imminent. You can see the charts here on the screen. So, yeah, this is pretty serious. And this happened in one, two, three, at least four different countries here. So, a significant area. This also comes here as U.S. officials have said that the U.S. is likely to keep 100,000 troops in Europe for the foreseeable future in face of the Russian threat. 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe for the foreseeable future. Boots on the ground over there in Europe. So just think about that. Think about how many American lives there are already there. So it seems as the U.S. is prepared for significant war. If you see my previous video, the U.S. Just evacuated thousands of Americans from the Middle East as they're preparing for a larger war there. And we have two major wars going on right now, and things do not seem to be de-escalating. If anything, they're escalating even higher. Many people think that this is in the throes of a world war with so many different countries and how many troops and people are already involved. Next up, we have a major decision that came from the Supreme Court today. Remember, there are 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court, 3 of which former President Donald Trump put there personally. 6 Republicans, 3 Democrats on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court provides a win to Trump, ruling he has immunity for some acts in election interference indictment. The legal question on whether a former president has immunity from prosecution for official acts have never come before the court. And ironically, the decision on this was 6-3, with all 6 Republicans voting for this. and the 3 Democratic judges voting against this decision. Take a listen to what happened.
We're coming on the air with some breaking news from the Supreme Court about former President Donald Trump. The High Court just issued a ruling about Mr. Trump's plea for immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts taken during his time in the White House. At the heart of this case, Mr. Trump insists that he cannot be criminally charged for his alleged efforts to block the transfer of power following the 2020 election. And we have to tell you, this is, yes, a historic, complicated decision. Our team of legal experts is going to take an extra moment here to really dive into the High Court's decision so that we can clearly explain what it means. While they do that here, let us turn to our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, there in D.C., to remind us all of what's at stake here. Hallie?
A lot, Craig, is the short answer to that question. It is both generational and also very specific. It is generational because it's possible that the Supreme Court will now set a new standard for presidential immunity moving forward for history. A legacy move here for generations to come yet. And specifically for former President Trump, it also obviously deeply matters to that federal election interference case against him. What the justices will decide as we are watching our team of legal experts there and correspondents hunched over their laptops sifting through this decision here. And let me explain what's at the heart of this case. Whether what the former president did as it related to the election interference scheme that he's alleged of conducting, were those acts unofficial or official? If they were unofficial, then his attorney concedes he could potentially be prosecuted for those. If they were official, he would, in theory, be immune to prosecution. That's the case that the former president's team is making. So let me give you an example. When the former president calls a private attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who then spread election fraud lies, his own attorney conceded that that would be a private, unofficial act. On the other hand, Mr. Trump calls the head of the Republican National Committee to talk about that fake elector scheme. His attorney insists that that is official. So that is what our team is parsing here. What specifically has the Supreme Court decided here on each of those matters? Now, the former president himself, in a new interview just released this morning that was taped yesterday, is seeming to downplay the impact of the immunity case against him. But remember why this is so critical. It is all about, and I'm talking politically here, it is all about the timing for him. His team is seeking to delay this as much as possible past the November election, because that is the political reality here, that the former president could, in theory, end up back in the White House come January. In theory, he could potentially pardon himself. That is uncharted territory here, so we don't want to get over our skis on that front. But the timing is what is so critical. The judge in this case has said that she would not, in fact, move forward with the trial until about 3 months after this case gets back to her. We've been waiting on this decision coming down, not just on the very last day of this Supreme Court term, but the very last case on the very last day of the Supreme Court term. We know that politically, when the former president faces these legal issues, and they are in the headlines, that he gets a boon as it relates to fundraising. After his hush money conviction, remember, state case, not this case, very different. He raised something like $141 million in the month of May. We are waiting, obviously, to see any reaction from his campaign, Craig. We'll bring it to you as soon as we get it, but I have to tell you, it is my guess that they are doing the same thing that we are doing, looking through this decision, determining how it will, in fact, specifically impact this case against Mr. Trump, Craig.
Now, just looking at this from an outsider point of view, former President Donald Trump is going to try to say everything or almost everything was done as an official presidential point of view. And then it's going to have to be argued in a court of law. And this will almost certainly get dragged out to the election. Almost certainly, in my opinion. You can let me know your opinion here in the comments. Then the question here is, does he get elected or not? If he gets elected, then he gets presidential immunity for 4 years. And then you almost could say, so he gets 4 years if he gets elected. If he doesn't, well, then, obviously he has to go through all those other legal court cases. You almost could kind of think down the line here. If he gets elected, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Trump is then maybe a vice president for the next president. And I honestly could see him him trying to get his son in there as maybe the president and him as the vice president or something along the lines for the next Republican candidate. I wouldn't be surprised if he even brings his son in there as his vice president now, and then, again, if he wins as the Republican candidate, and then switches it for the next Republican candidate. He's the vice president, and the son, is the Republican candidate for the next thing. So don't be surprised if we see the Trump name for a long time, even though Trump would be 82 when his term ends. We could see him going on for as a vice president, even. Because let me know your thoughts here in the comments, but I wouldn't be surprised at something like that. Yeah. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below. Hit that like button for us. It really helps out our YouTube channel. Click here to watch my video about the presidential debate, how the Democrats might replace Biden. But at the end of that video, we also talk about the other Supreme Court ruling, how they just legalized bribery. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that video.